Welcome in, everybody. Welcome to Behind the Call, the podcast where we dive into the stories of the voices behind the sports we all know and love. I'm your host, Chase Upton. Today, I'm joined by a good friend of mine and an East Texas sports legend, Dr. Jon Groth. Dr. Groth is a former Division I and professional baseball player. Dr. John led TJC to a national title as head coach and now serves as the voice of both UT Tyler and TJC baseball. He's also a proud member of the TJC Ring of Honor. Coach Groth, how are we doing?
Good to talk to you, Chase.
Thank you for taking the time for me, honestly, out of your busy schedule. I know how busy you are in the middle of baseball season. I really appreciate it. We'll just get right into things. Kind of tell me about how you got into broadcasting.
Well, probably you have to roll it back to when I was, a youngster. I grew up Northeast Ohio, and so I'd listened to an awful lot of radio, Cleveland Browns, Cleveland Indians, Cleveland Cavaliers, Ohio State Buckeyes. Just I really enjoyed, obviously, watching, but back then ESPN wasn't a thing, and so a lot of times, live sports was on TV from time to time, but not nearly what it is now. And so if you wanted to kind of keep up with some of the teams, you had to listen. And so I grew up listening on radio to an awful lot of sports, live sports. And so I always wanted, when I was hired to start the baseball program at TJC, Tyler Junior College, we had a couple of broadcasts here and there, but I always wanted to have somebody that would cover our team. And when I stepped down in 2009, thought it might be a fun hobby to give it a go. And we had some makeshift equipment we threw together, and we started a stream. We started to live stream, the games, and kind of jumped right into the play-by-play part, right away. So I had never done play-by-play before. But I guess because I listened to a lot of it growing up, and I still consume a lot of sports, on TV, and I enjoy listening too. I still enjoy listening to sports on the radio or, on the internet. So when we started that stream, it would have been the spring of 2010. I've been doing it ever since. And so I had the interest in broadcasting the Tyler Junior College baseball games, and it's just kind of a fun hobby. I describe what's going on, and I get to every once in a while if I can get a word in on myself edgewise, I can do a little color.
Yeah.
So it's fun. It's a fun hobby. It's very natural for me because I've been around baseball my whole professional life, and so that's kind of how it started.
Mm-hmm. So do you remember the first game you did?
I do.
What game was it?
Well, it was TJC versus Bossier, and it was over at Captain's Field in Shreveport. And, Chuck Smith at that time was one of our associate athletic directors. He got everything set up. I knew nothing about any of the equipment. And, here comes that first pitch, and we just jumped in and started calling it. So it was a really fun, experience at that ballpark. It's an old minor league ballpark.
What year was that?
It would have been 2010.
Hmm.
So they've actually torn that stadium down, but it was a nice. At one point, it was a AA professional stadium. It really, in its heyday, was a nice facility. It had a really nice press box for us to call from. So, that first one was a fun one. And I've done, I don't know how many, but I don't know if I've done thousands. But
you're not keeping count anymore?
No.
So even just in the 2010, that's just 15 years, which doesn't seem like that long. But kind of how has the technology and stuff changed just even since then? As far as broadcasting goes.
In that 15 years, I've probably used, I don't know, maybe 8 or 10 different platforms. We just kind of roll with whatever was available, and we're trying to ramp up what we do at Tyler Junior College, but we still have a pretty low budget to work with, and the equipment we try to keep up with, what we can, but it's changed a lot. Everybody streams now, Chase, and that's, to me, encouraging. And it's gone down into the high school level.
Mm-hmm.
Actually even like select ball
Yeah.
and,
The other day I was scrolling on YouTube and I saw a 9U game in like Louisiana being streamed, and it had a score bug and the
right.
kids' names popped up. I mean, it's crazy.
Everybody's a broadcaster. And the cool thing is they have kind of dumbed down the technology to where it's pretty simple. You don't
Yep.
have to know a ton of stuff. You got to be committed to kind of working through some of those bugs that do pop up from time to time with technology. But because the technology is so available to so many, I mean, literally you could stream off your phone,
Mm-hmm.
then that's change. That's the biggest change. Before, you had to have some kind of equipment. You had to have a really good hardline internet connection. There were a lot of had tos to actually get the stream online. And now, the internet has exploded, and the technology has really got down to a level where you can do a decent little broadcast with a phone. And if you got somebody feeding that's the score bug thing, it really is it's pretty good. So the availability of the stream and the broadcasting is bigger than it's ever been, and so that's probably the biggest change. And it probably is not gonna that's not gonna stop. It's going to continue to get
Yep.
more available, and hopefully a little less expensive to have. I'm amazed at what I see online in terms of some of the qualities of the images and the qualities of the video.
Yep.
So I mean, that's going to do nothing but probably get better. um, so that's probably the biggest change.
So, as we said, you do play-by-play for UT Tyler and TJC. Take me a little bit through the process of just studying for these players and these teams when you're getting ready for a game.
Well, I usually spend somewhere between an hour and 2 hours getting ready, and really at this point, um, I'm reading through the bios of the coaches. I do pregame interviews with both head
Mhm.
coaches before the game, and that to me is one of the more enjoyable things I like to do. I get down, I'm very comfortable on the field in the dugout. I know the routine these guys are going through pregame, so I try to pick times where they're not, as occupied with getting ready to play. And I usually take, somewhere between 3 and 5 minutes, and I say, you got a couple of minutes you can visit with me. And so, and the prep time, I mean, you can go as deep as you want to on this. I have a good friend who's started out in summer collegiate ball and now is doing routinely ESPN games. And what separates him from a lot of people that I've seen in the broadcast world is he does a massive amount of research on players on both teams.
Hmm.
And so, that's one of the things that makes the great broadcasters so great is, guys like Vin Scully, if you know who he is, the old Dodger
Of
broadcaster.
course.
You would sit and watch a game and he would pull out of nowhere some story about a player, and it was just amazing to hear him speak. And that didn't just happen. Okay, he did a lot of research on these guys. He spent a lot of time getting to know the players that were in the games he was calling. And so at our level, I do as much as I can in terms of finding out baseball stuff. And I do like to dig into some of the backgrounds of the coaches, because I'm going to interview those guys, and I will bring some of their personal background information into my questions. And so I'll spend some time reading up on the coaches that are going to be involved in those games. And, from the baseball side of it, I'll try to make sure I have a pretty good grasp on the statistics of the teams that are entering into those games, how they've played recently, where they're at in the standings, some of the key players offensively, and the pitchers, and some of the pitchers in different roles. And I've looked at so many stat sheets over the years. I can usually look at one for about 5 minutes and kind of get a feel for how the year's going for that team. So,
No, so a lot of a big fact that people don't really understand about doing junior college baseball. Take me through a little bit of some of the difficulties about finding information on certain teams. If some people don't know, TJC is a Division I JUCO, but like say they're playing a Joliet who's a Division III. Kind of walk me through a little bit of those difficulties being on the junior college level.
well, the lower levels that you go, and including down into high school, because there's plenty of broadcasters who are doing high school games, the statistics are harder and harder to kind of dig through. But I will say this, even at the junior college level, They in recent years, the NJCAA has mandated that teams they put their stats out within, I don't know, 24 hours of that game being completed. Every team's got to upload their box scores. So it's getting better and better each year for me to find information on players than it was. But it is, and if the conference does a good job on their website, there's, I will say that there's a pretty good difference between the conference website for UT Tyler. They're in the Lone Star Conference. It's a very organized, structured conference. They have a conference-wide streaming service, a conference-wide website, statistics, the whole thing. So I have no problem getting information, statistics on UT Tyler. TJC has a conference website. It's volunteer this and volunteer that. So getting some of the same types of information at the junior college level can be a bit challenging. You can get information on individual teams and sometimes individual players, but being able to put that into the context of a conference race and conference leaders and those types of things.
Yeah.
At the junior college level is not as easy to glean that information as it is at the four-year level. NC2A is pretty structured, pretty organized. And it also depends, honestly, on the conference itself. If you've got good structure and good hierarchy in the conference, you're probably going to have access to some pretty good information.
Yeah. What about early on when you were, when you first started? Could you find stats at all? I know it's 15 years ago. It's not like it was in the 40s, but
I will tell you
it was a lot harder.
The way I cover a game is different now than it was back then. Back then, Chase, I would have to print out whatever I get my hands on. I had to get to a computer or a fax machine. People don't even know what that is anymore, but
I know what it is. I've never used one. Never used a fax machine.
Well, sometimes I would ask a coach, "Can you fax me a roster? Can you fax me your stats?" And the internet was not nearly as readily. Now, it was available. Don't get me wrong.
And then you're depending on them to answer. What if they don't answer? And then you've kind of not got anything.
And part of that, I stay pretty connected to the coaches. And so usually if I have an issue with a roster or trying to get stats, I can communicate to either the head coach at Tyler Junior College or the head coach at UT Tyler. And usually they can put me in touch with that head coach, which usually gets me the information I need. But going back to when I started, no, I have distinct memories of just having reams of paper with me every game and making sure that, because, you want to try to add something to the broadcast. Now I carry my iPad and that's about it. I do keep score on a hard copy for myself so that I can put, certain things into context in terms of the game itself. But literally, I pull all my stats, rosters, schedules, weather information, everything right off my iPad. So I just open up, a myriad of tabs and tab through while I'm, broadcasting, and all that stuff's electronic now. And for the most part, those websites are pretty current. So that's changed a ton. Don't have to print nearly as much out. It's a rare thing for me to have to actually have things printed out other than my own score sheet when I do a broadcast.
So all the games you've done, well, I don't want to make you pick one, but if you had to pick like a favorite game or a couple favorite moments, what would those be?
Ooh, wow.
You got time. Not to put you on the spot if you need a couple seconds.
I do, and I've had a chance to do a lot of TJ. It's so fun. I will tell you that when I stepped out of the dugout and turned the program over to Doug Wren, Doug played for me and Doug coached with me. And so I don't know if there's a singular game that I remember, but I do remember just really kind of having a good vibe with what was going to happen because, Doug, he's had a lot of good coaches in his background, and he worked with Jeff Lightfoot over at Weatherford for a couple of years, and I know he played at Howard Payne. So he's had other coaches in his life. He had good high school coaches, but I kind of had a pretty good feel of what was coming because a lot of what he did was what I did. Not all of it. He had his own flavor for sure, but if I thought I had a feeling when the bunt was coming, I had a feeling when a hit and run was coming. And so it was fun to be able to be in the booth and, kind of
Y'all
predict the
almost
future.
is it kind of like you almost feel like you felt connected to him a little bit? You almost
Absolutely.
knew what he
No,
was going to do at times.
no question. I've enjoyed tremendously watching Doug grow as a man, as a coach, as a father, a husband, all the things I've seen him kind of grow through while he's been here at Tyler Junior College. And so it's been fun. That was a fun. Now TJC's got a new coach. Can't really predict Brett as much yet, but it'll take me a year or two to kind of get a feel for how he likes to manage a game. But and again, Doug didn't manage a game exactly how I would. But the more you call somebody, the more you get a feel for how they're going to react in certain situations, what they're going to do,
and stuff. Yeah.
So that was fun. The walk-offs never get old. We had one the other day.
I saw that.
And so, 11th inning, it was like 11:30 at night, and everybody's ready to get out of there. When's this game be over? And bang, TJC gets a walk-off home run to win it. And so those are always really fun. I've had chances to do Grand Junction World Series games. I did the national championship game on live cable TV from Mike Carter. Actually, that 2010, that first year that Doug was coaching, they lost the championship game to Gloucester. And that was a heartbreaker, man. And it was really challenging. And
you were broadcasting that one?
I was the color guy on that.
Wow.
Lynn Rollins came over from Louisiana with Comcast cable. And they did that live from Mike Carter, and it was cool. I mean, it was a fun TV environment. I've done a few TV things before, but that was probably a pretty memorable one. It was hard for me personally because a lot of the guys Doug was coaching that year that were out on that field ready to win a national championship were guys that I had helped recruit and had coached up for a year. And so, and Doug's in that mode right now because this is his first year removed from being coached. So there's a lot of guys that are playing for Tyler Junior College right now that Doug brought in and coached up last year. So I'm sure he's feeling a little bit of that as well. But those are some of the more memorable broadcasts. I know, the neat thing about being a broadcaster is there's not one broadcast that's like the other. Every game's got a dynamic of its own with different characters, different casts of characters, and that's the beauty of sports, right? The unpredictability of it, the drama. Yep. And so it's fun to be a part of that, even in a small way. So I'm sorry, I'm not going to have one particular moment that really sticks out, but
I'll forgive you.
Really enjoyed broadcasting Doug's games, and I'm enjoying broadcasting Brett's games as well.
So we'll shift gears a little bit. You've talked a little bit about restarting the TJC baseball program back in, I think it was at 92.
Yeah, I took over in June of 92. Our first official season was the spring of 93.
So kind of talk me about how that kind of came to fruition and like a little bit, some of the difficulties and the good things that came out of it.
Well, I kind of chuckle at it, but I got thrown into one of the faculty member who was off for the summer into their office for June and July, lived in the dorms on campus at TJC for a month because my wife and two kids we were waiting to get into our rent house here in Tyler. So I lived in the dorms, and Tyler Junior College baseball was me and a telephone when it started. We did not have a uniform or a bat or a ball.
Not even a computer or anything.
Not a computer. The first thing I bought when I got my hands on the budget was I went to Sam's and got a computer. And, the other coaches thought I was crazy. And, what do you need that thing for? And I knew the value of having a computer. And so it was a lot of work to get the program off the ground. The first order of business was trying to get players. And then, at the same time, you're trying to hire. At that point, I had one graduate assistant stipend that we put him in the dorms, gave him a meal ticket. And I think he made like $200 a month. Now, who wouldn't do that? So anyways, I found someone that was hungry enough to do it. and he did a great job helping me getting TJC baseball off the ground. And boy, it's just been so fun over the years to see how far the program has come. But those early years were really challenging. Trying to find in that first year, especially jumping into a very competitive Region 14 conference, and being the first. And we actually, it took us about 4 or 5 years to be a playoff caliber team. But once we did, I don't think we've turned and looked back yet. So that's been a fun part of it, just to see. And that's what you try to do, right? When you start something, you want to build something of excellence, and have the bar as high as you can get it, and expect your players to come in. And so, my background, I played 3 sports in high school: junior college baseball, played my Division I baseball at University of New Orleans, got to play in the College World Series, played 2 years with the Cincinnati Reds, and then coached with the University of New Orleans, Georgia Southern, and did my master's there. I did my PhD at Texas A&M, and I took a little bit from every coach I coached under, and that was really, I was blessed to be under 3 Hall of Fame coaches at the University of New Orleans: Ron Maestri, and at Georgia Southern, Jack Stallings, and at Texas A&M, Mark Johnson. And boy, I was so fortunate to learn a ton of baseball, a ton of life, and then have the chance to start the program from scratch at Tyler Junior College. I took all those experiences that I'd had and was able to try to put them together and put a program together. And so it was a great challenge, like you said, but it also has been really rewarding. And then to be able to turn it over, to Doug. We won our first championship national title in 2007, and Doug just turned around and won 5 more of them. So, and hopefully we got more of those to come with Brett. So we're excited. It's been a joy to raise my family in East Texas. Lived here 33 years, and it's been a hard place to leave. And Tyler Junior College is a special place to work. And so, yeah, it has been a great challenge, but I like challenges, and I think doing what I do, I've been really fortunate and privileged by the Lord to have the opportunity to do what I've done.
So you said it's been rewarding from being a player to a coach to now being a broadcaster. What do you feel like has been the most rewarding part of it all?
The most rewarding part, Chase, is hearing back from former players and hearing them talk about how valuable their time in Tyler was. And now to see them, a lot of my player, I'm an old guy, I'm 63 years old. And so I've got a lot of players who have their own kids now, and their own kids are going to college. And their own kids, when their kids want to come back and play at the same place they played, and some of them, to hear back some of the stories, obviously the fun stories of the band of brothers that they are for a couple of years under your leadership, but even more than that, to hear them talk about some of the lessons that they learned while they were playing ball for Tyler Junior College. That is, that's why I stayed in it as long as I did, is that the chance to use something you love, a kid's game, to impact lives and to point people in the right direction, and use the passions that the Lord gave me and try to instill in the players that I coached that the same kind of passion. At some point in life, we're all going to have to hang up the glove and go to work doing something. And so I struggle with that. Honestly, when I got released from the Reds, it took me a number of years to really acknowledge that my career was over. I really wanted to go to the big leagues like every ball player does. But then the Lord kind of spoke to my heart and said, I want you to think about being a coach. And I argued with God for a little while, but that never worked out too good. So I started coaching.
I think it's worked out pretty well.
Well, I started coaching at New Orleans and kind of liked it. And I was advised at that point, if you want to get into college coaching, you need to go get a master's. So I did that at Georgia Southern. And I fell in love with teaching and coaching at the college level at Georgia Southern. And I was under as good a teacher of baseball as ever was in college in Jack Stallings. He was one of the coaches on the Olympic team back in his day. and a Hall of Famer, ABCA Hall of Famer, and then had a chance to go do something very similar at Texas A&M under Mark Johnson while I worked on my PhD, and that worked out equally as well. And then while I was at A&M, one of the assistant coaches, Jim Lawler, he told one day in the office, says, "Hey, they're starting a junior college program up in Tyler." And I said, "Well, where's Tyler? I have no idea where that is." And got an interview, and there were 100 guys apply. They interviewed 12 people, and then in God's providence, I was the one they picked to start the program. So really blessed. And our family at that point had 2 children. Kitty and I had 2, and we had 4 more after living here in Tyler. And so we raised our 6 kids right here in Tyler, Texas, and really don't have any regrets about that. It's a medium-sized city that we've really enjoyed. I enjoy the collegiate environment, and Tyler Junior College is a really special place to work. The campus is beautiful. I think they really care about education there. But we also have a very dynamic athletic program with a very high standard. We're probably in the top 3 in national titles. I think we're sitting right now at about 69 of those as a program. We've got the full athletic program, baseball, basketball, football, tennis, golf, volleyball, softball. So, I mean, we have the full allotment of sports, and every one of our coaches come in every year believing that they're going to have a chance to make a run at a national championship. And that's pretty special.
Yeah, that's awesome stuff. So you've talked a good amount about your faith, and you close every broadcast that I've watched with a statement that says, "Thanks be to God who gives us the victory through Jesus Christ our Lord." To me, that really speaks who you are, like as a guy, at least the to me, kind of short time I've been around you. Talk to me about how big your faith has been throughout your career.
I don't know. I'll unequivocally say I'm not sure where I might have ended up if I hadn't have found the Lord at 18 years old. I grew up in a church. I knew about the Lord, but at 18, at a football chaplain of ours in high school, he started challenging me about, hey, do you know that, do you know about the gospel? You know that Jesus died for your sins and wants to be a part of your life every day. And I kind of knew what he was talking about, but I kind of didn't. And so over the course of months, he shared with me what it meant to have a vibrant relationship with God through Jesus. And so at 18, I took a small step of faith. At 20, I played 2 summers with a group called Athletes in Action, which is a faith-based summer league. And that absolutely changed the trajectory of my life. And so from that point until now, I've tried to use the things that God's gifted me with to glorify him and to point other people towards his son. And so my prayer for every one of my players is that they've seen that faith lived out. Really didn't try to beat my players over the head with a Bible. That wasn't what it was about. It was simply living it out, and at opportune times sharing how meaningful it was for me. And so that 1 Corinthians 15:57 is a very important verse in my life. That's what I quote it when I go off the air. And I just want to encourage people that are listening as well. Sometimes I think that's becoming more of a popular thing to do, and that's great. Young athletes, coaches are more expressive about their faith now than probably ever before. And it's more accessible because we do have interviews going on like this one all the time. And so, it is absolutely who I am as a human and as a person. I'm thankful. We're getting ready to celebrate Easter, the resurrection of Christ. And that gives all of us hope. We live in a dark world sometimes, and there's a lot of bad news. And the good news is that God loves us and really does want us to follow him. And he wants the best for us. He's allowed me to be a missionary in the game of baseball. And that's pretty cool.
Awesome stuff, Jon. I think probably my final question is going to be, I'm young, I'm interning at TJC. I'm trying to get my foot in the door, different places, wanting to be a broadcaster for a career. Kind of what type of advice do you have, not only to me, but other kids, around my age trying to get into broadcasting and sports media?
Well, I'll tell you, just like I tell the players that I recruited, man, find something you got a passion for. And if it's broadcasting or if it's behind the scenes with the production or whatever it is, and be excellent at it. Scripture tells us to approve that which is excellent. And so I think God gives us talents, gifts, and abilities for a reason. And so work hard, and you're going to have to pay your dues. I tell coaches this all the time, young men like yourself that maybe want to get into coaching. I say, I volunteered as a college coach for 6 years. I did not get paid a dime until I took the job at Tyler. And
Wow.
so you're going to have to pay your dues, but your best resume is going to be your current job. Work hard, do the best you can where you're planted, and that next job will come, because if I'm going to look to hire you, I'm going to talk to the people you're working for and say, tell me about Chase. What's he doing? What's his work ethic like? Does he have a standard of excellence that's going to fit what I want him for? And so don't be afraid to work hard. Don't be afraid to volunteer and ask good questions. If you think you want to do something, then I wish that our culture and our educational system had a kind of a shadowing type system where you could go and shadow different career paths, so you could find out and then go learn about how to do it. We kind of got that upside down in the way we do things. So many people get their degrees, realize the degree is not something they enjoy. And so if you got something you love, find a way to get paid for it. And that's not always easy. I'll just tell you, it's not. I enjoy broadcasting a lot. It's more of a hobby at this point in my career than really a career at all. But I've enjoyed doing it, and as long as I have the opportunity to do it, I'm probably going to keep doing it, because it's a fun hobby. And I'm probably getting close to being done as a professor, but I may keep broadcasting for a while, as long as someone will give me a microphone.
Yeah. Well, Jon, again, I really, really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule. It's game tomorrow, right? UT Tyler?
Yes, I got
Are you
UT Tyler
broadcasting
tomorrow and TJC on Wednesday.
Okay, I'll probably be I get out of class at 3:30 tomorrow. I might be at the game tomorrow. But again, thank you for taking the time. I really appreciate it. Um, thank you to everybody watching at home. This has been the second episode of Behind the Call. Again, I'm Chase Upton. Thank you for joining us. Until next time.